My next suggestion strays a bit thematically from most of my suggestions surrounding game systems, but this is my desire to tie up loose ends in the storytelling. I gave up trying to follow what was happening closely in the story years ago, but a few things that still stick out to me as ending abruptly are the following. First, what's up with Callus? This guy was introduced 3 years ago on the Leviathan, and at the end we met and killed a fake robot version of him, which I guess I could read the lore about, but I feel like I should have a basic understanding of what all that was about from something in the game, and it didn't seem like we ended on great terms as we killed his dogs, his bathers, and his robot clone. Then we're back on his ship helping him in the next expansion with some Vex indigestion in the Eater of Worlds raid lair, so okay, I guess we're doing him favors now and we're cool. Then in Spire of Stars, we're killing some Cabal commander who was trying to betray him or something. Then in Crown of Sorrow, we're back killing a Cabal who was mind controlled by Savat Thune. So at this point, it seems like we're just his maid doing all his dirty work, but my question is, for what? Don't get me wrong, I loved all of these raids from their mechanics to environments, but like, are we going to meet Callus in person at some point and some cool, awesome cutscene? Is he ever going to swoop in our time of need to return the favor and save us? How about any acknowledgement from other characters to make it seem like our little adventures with him aren't some fever dream that's disconnected from the rest of the Destiny universe? So that's my big loose thread from Vanilla D2, and here's one from Forsaken. At the end of the campaign we kill Aldrin, spoiler alert, and then a few weeks later we get some cutscenes showing him being awoken as a Guardian. Whoa, what? This guy killed Cade. Are we going after him again? Does the Vanguard resent or accept him as a Guardian now? Does he remember his past life? How was he chosen? Where is he now? It's been almost 2 years and we have no idea, which is just honestly unacceptable. It feels as though the narrative of this game is not taken seriously and they just cycle through interns who draw what ifs out of a hat to implement the idea at a surface level, then they leave the company and no one knows what else to do, so they just leave it be and vaguely reference it in a lore card every couple of months. And finally, from Shadowkeep to round off loose threads by each yearly expansion, and that is the ending of the campaign where in an attempt to find the source of the nightmares we enter the Black Garden, I guess, and see a mirror of ourselves saying they are our salvation. Then it fades to black. Who was that? I have no idea. What makes the nightmares? I still don't know. The darkness or something, I guess? What does he mean by our salvation? No idea. A few weeks later we see Eris discover something and chuckle to herself. Oh my god, is she being tempted to the dark again? What did she find? Yeah, it's again been almost a year and we still have no clue or any answers to these questions. And if we do have answers to these questions somewhere, then I have a problem with how it's being implemented. If the answers are in the lore, then the questions should be there as well. But don't give me an intriguing cutscene, then ask me to stop playing the game and go read a book. Even if these things are being answered in Beyond Light, it made the last year of DLC feel trivial, as there were burning questions accompanying one of the most abrupt endings to a campaign I've ever experienced. Okay, back to little game system critiques. The shared quest and bounty cap is too low or should be separate. New Light players barely have enough room to pick up bounties when their quest slots are clogged with every exotic, campaign, intro, and seasonal quest. It also just doesn't make sense why me having a chalice for Menagerie, synthesizer for Gambit Prime, makes me able to hold less 2 bounties. This is a minor thing, but it's kind of odd and annoying that these two share the same inventory cap. Next is fixing or removing overload champions. I know I'm in the minority here, but I actually really like champions. For the first time in a long time, they've added a meaningful gameplay mechanic in moment-to-moment action that makes combat have more challenge and more depth. There are some issues with it which I have touched on, like weapon restrictions and mod restrictions, but overall I see that as a net positive. However, overload champions are not fun or creative. They are just a buggier version of the unstoppable champion with health regen. Unstoppables take 1 charge shot to stagger and remain staggered for a decent chunk of time. This is the first issue with overloads, and that is that it takes a certain amount to stun them. It is super inconsistent and seems to favor high rate of fire weapons, which sometimes leaves you emptying a full clip of hand cannon into an overload minotaur, just to miss a third of your shots due to the unbearable and spastic teleportations and not even get the stun off due to the high threshold. My next issue with the stun is that it can be mistaken for regular flinch, making people unsure of when they actually activated the overload as the animation is pretty similar. With the unstoppable this doesn't happen because it can't flinch without an unstoppable shot. However, overloads, you might stop shooting thinking you overloaded them for them to just shake it off, regen all their health and continue to ape you. Last is the issue with health regen and overload cooldown. Bungie, you need to pick one or ideally neither. What happens often is you will overload the enemy, damage it, yet when it begins to attack you again, you find that your overload weapons aren't doing anything because of a hidden and impossible to track cooldown mechanic on the effect, and during this period when you cannot stun the enemy, they are aggressively regenerating health. Overall, not fun, and too much random out of control annoyance. This next one is reverting a change that came as an extremely frustrating change to movement mechanics in Destiny, and that is the removal of Relic and sword skating on the Warlock class. While I completely understand Bungie's perspective on this and why they would want it removed, this is simply a fun thing to do that is at the expense of no one. There were no game-breaking advantages this caused other than some really awesome speedruns of raids that only were done by the top 0.1% of PvE sweatlords and no one else. It was just a fun way to go faster, reward good timing, and there was no important reason to remove it. This is reminiscent of in Fortnite when players discovered they could rocket ride. This was not an intended mechanic, but it was hard to pull off, led to cool and awesome plays, so Epic Games just left it in and even showcased it as a feature. If a bug is fun, just let it be a feature. It pains me to think of Bungie employees putting time and effort into fixing this thing that people liked, when they could have been doing something else. There are millions of Reddit posts every day complaining about things, and I don't think I ever saw one saying that sword skating was OP. My next issue is Gambit related. Now some might disagree and just say get good, but I think that Gambit is widely held in pretty low regard by the community, and one thing that makes it very frustrating is the unrelenting and overpowered invader spam. It is ridiculous that someone running Truth with double ammo finder and scavenger can after about 45 seconds jump to your side with wall hacks and an overshield to fire a quick 3 aggressive tracking rockets, wipe your team, and get ready to repeat it again a minute later. These situations feel absolutely indefensible and out of my control. There are way too many advantages serving the invader as it currently stands. The invader can see you and you can't see them. They have an overshield and you usually do not. Their death results in no punishment, while yours could result in losing 15 motes each. Not to mention you are fighting waves of AI enemies, while they have no focus other than you. Using 1k voices, truth, xenophage, or other strong heavy weapons with all of these factors already working in your favor makes it pretty much a situation entirely devoid of any skill whatsoever. My idea for a fix is to have heavy ammo removed on invasion and the wall hacks tweaked to pulse every few seconds rather than be permanent. This way there is a small cost to the invasion, most of the blatantly overpowered weapons are negated, and there is a bit of room for counterplay from the defending team to try to snipe against them. This would reward skilled players and give an upper hand to the invader as they are entering a 1v4, but without the frustration of overwhelming imbalances. This would make it actually significant and rewarding when they get a full team wipe, instead of that just being the expected result. And finally, one of the biggest issues in the game, especially for people who prefer the PvP side of things, is the current state of Trials of Osiris. Now, to be honest, this is a huge thing to tackle, and I don't have some perfect game plan to fix things, but I will try to point out some specific issues and suggestions for changes. The first thing is cheaters. It is absolutely unacceptable to play a cheater in about half of the cards you get to 7 wins on, which is pretty much what was happening to my friends and I when we still bothered playing Trials. Bungie has said in TWABs that they have expanded their banning team and were banning about 2,000 players a week during the Trials launch, but until you actually have an anti-cheat that can detect these hacks players are using on the game instantly, reviewing reports and banning players on a per case basis simply won't do anymore. Because the game is free, Trials is free, it takes about 5 hours to get high enough to enter Trials and get yourself a revoker with a cheating account. They'll just make a new one once you ban them. I know that Bungie really wants there to be a fairly low barrier to entry for Trials to use as an appealing factor to pull in new players, but that test is over and it didn't work. You are losing way more players this way, and there needs to be either a time wall of something like 50 hours or a paywall that requires you to own the most recent season. The next major issue is error codes. In one of the more recent TWABs, I read a long post about the main source of beavers being fixed. If this is actually true, then this could have solved most of the problems, and that would be great. But if it's only partially fixed, this should still be a #1 priority for the team. I love this game and have been playing the Destiny series non-stop since Vanilla D1, but it is absolutely embarrassing trying to bring new friends to the game for them to be error-coded non-stop out of every activity they try to play, and I am not exaggerating. It got so ridiculous that I started to track error codes in Trials, and we had a teammate get kicked from an error code in the first 2 matches of our Trials card for 3 cards in a row. And when we played cheaters on the 4th card in our next match, we decided to call it a night, because we were simply having absolutely no fun. My next problem is one that I already touched on earlier, so you know my stance on it and any potential ideas, and that is third-person peeking, which is still a big issue that is only made worse in this mode because more is on the line. A few weapons currently in the sandbox also make me want to rip my hair out while playing against them, and without a doubt the winner of this is Mountaintop. Firing a primary grenade launcher from the air around a corner near my feet shouldn't leave me one shot. It takes no skill. To give you an idea of how brutally overpowered it is, Triple Mountaintop is the go-to strat when you match cheaters if you want a chance to win, because they are so strong you can beat people using regular weapons even if their aim is mechanically perfect and enhanced using out-of-game hacks. I have again brought new players to the game who were completely baffled and assumed their opponent had cheated to acquire heavy ammo, and were then blown away when I told them this was just a weapon in the game that will always spawn with 2 shots, same as a shotgun. Next is Revoker, which allows people to play passively and never have to move up no matter how many shots they miss. It is extremely rewarding for bad players who can just jump around railing shots left, right, and center until a lucky one hits without any punishment for all of their missed shots. In addition to this, Revoker is also in the highest impact rate of snipers, so even if they just body shot you, they can basically cough on you to finish off the kill. Snipers in general have broken flinch mechanics and are even more busted on controller, so these extra benefits of Revoker push things even further over the edge of what's acceptable in the sandbox. These things will be sunset in November, but honestly that isn't fast enough, because it will plague the sandbox until then and continue to do so forever in the competitive playlist, which has no light level advantages. And finally, the game mode needs to be more rewarding if you want people to play. It's not that the community hates Crucible. If you look at player activity, there are tons of people playing the regular Crucible playlists. Trials, on the other hand, has a staggeringly low engagement from the majority of the community, and besides all the negative factors, I would say that this is because there isn't enough pull, especially for PvE focused players, which makes up a large population of the game. I'm personally a primarily focused PvE player myself. I care more about raids than the endgame Crucible experience. That being said, I have gone flawless a handful of times in D1 and D2, and I'm not a complete Crucible scrub. However, at the moment, I have no pull towards trials even for the loot. There are so many powerful sources in a week, especially times 3 for all your characters, that a few extra from trials is just pretty insignificant. Not to mention, powerful drops don't even help you after you hit the powerful cap, which in the smaller expansions happens within a few days if you're a dedicated player. To be fair, there are 2 possible pinnacle drops, and while I would say the pinnacle for 7 wins is a pretty good incentive, the flawless one is hardly worth the time investment for most players. According to Destiny Tracker, I'm in the top 10% of trials performance, and the people I played with were also around the same skill level, yet half of the weekends we attempted to play on a handful of cards, we would give up before even going flawless. Given this, I can only imagine that the other 90% of players basically see the flawless pinnacle drop as an impossibility. Currently, you would also need to play 10 games to get enough tokens to get a single non-powerful package, which could reward you absolutely nothing that is significant or a must-have. The auto rifle is fine, but can be replaced by other similar ones, and same goes for the shotgun and sniper. The gear can roll high stats, but so can many other sources that are 10 times faster. I know Bungie wants to have more tokens the higher you go, so good players don't reset their card and stomp low win teams, but I think there needs to be an increase all around, because currently from a loot perspective, it's more rewarding to just play the control playlist. Another way to even that out could be a random drop chance on match completion from your already acquired loot pool. In addition to this, I think locking some cool mods behind trials would also be a big pull. You could have them get a random low drop chance at 3, 5, and 7 wins, or available to purchase for a very large quantity of tokens from Saint 14, which brings me to another annoyance, which is, why do tokens even delete at the end of the week? I can understand deleting them at the end of the season, maybe when the loot changes over so people can't hoard for the new loot pool, but if it's the same selection of weapons every week, why is this even a thing? It's just disheartening when I forget to hand a bunch of them in at the end of the week and lose them. They should carry over. One more small idea is to guarantee an exotic piece of gear which you don't already have on your first flawless run per week. Just a little extra loot to make it closer to on par with the Master Nightfall, which can be easily completed in usually 15 to 20 minutes. And that is all I could think of. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff I'm forgetting about, so if you have any ideas or issues that you'd like to see fixed, make sure to leave them in the comments, and if I get enough good ones, maybe I can make another video around that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.